Bonjour, bonjour. Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here again. First live after the summer break. So I hope you all enjoyed a very nice summer, very warm summer, that you're all ready for this 4 months coming that are going to be very intense for everybody, I guess. So I'm very happy to welcome Thibaut Souyris. I'll let him introduce himself just after my introduction. Just a quick reminder for those listening to us tonight. Uh, we are streaming on different platforms. We are streaming on LinkedIn. So we are live on LinkedIn. We are live on YouTube. We are live on a couple of melting spots. So don't hesitate to push your questions in the chat wherever you are on LinkedIn, on Melting Spot. Just ask your question, your burning question, and we'll take them as they come. Okay, so just ask anything. We will get your questions, and I'll push them through Thibaut anytime. Welcome, Thibaut. Happy to have you on the mic. I just let you introduce yourself, maybe for the people listening to us.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Ben, for having me. Very glad to
My
be
pleasure.
back from holiday and you know, talking about today how we're going to use AI and specifically ChatGPT to book meetings. So a bit about myself. As you, Benoit, I'm French, but we speak English because a lot of people, I guess, are not understanding French. So I was born and raised in Switzerland and France, and basically what I'm doing is I'm training and coaching tech sales people to start conversations and book meetings. And the way I do that is through experimenting. So every time there's a new technology or something new, I experiment with it. And AI was no exception. So I've been playing around with this for quite a while. And I
Like
think,
quite a while, meaning like a couple of months or even a
yeah,
year ago or a year and
basically
a half
from
ago?
January this year.
From January.
So,
Okay.
when ChatGPT started to kind of take off, so that's when I was like, okay, that's interesting to go and check. And I've been playing around with that.
Okay, great. And well, you're going to share insights, tips, best practices regarding so how to use ChatGPT to book meetings. So that's really
Yeah.
the topic of tonight. I have one question before you start. I know you have a couple of slides you would like to share. Why ChatGPT, and is ChatGPT the best tool to book meetings?
So basically, ChatGPT for me is a bit like the infrastructure for AI. So obviously, you have different types of models and different types of stuff you can use. So you have Midjourney, for example, for pictures. So
Mm-hmm.
there's tons of different things with AI. But nowadays, every tool has some kind of AI component to it. And what it means in the background for most cases is that they are connected to the ChatGPT API,
Okay.
so OpenAI API, and they're using ChatGPT. And so for me, I think it's really very important to use ChatGPT and understand how to write prompts, which is how you communicate with the AI, because you're going to understand in a tool, for example, Notion, they use like a really good, powerful AI. So they use ChatGPT. But what
Okay.
they're doing is they're taking your content, so your variables, and inputting that into a prompt. And so if you're able to really create prompts, you can create so many different kind of use cases, and you can pick a tool that's going to work for you. Because in a lot
Okay.
of cases, you may end up paying for a tool for copywriting, another tool for scoring your leads and whatever. And at the end, you end up paying a ton of money for something you could do yourself. So for me, it's really about learning the basics and then picking what tool works for you.
Okay. And to tease a little bit on the next couple of minutes, since you started using ChatGPT, so last January, if I understood correctly,
Mhm.
like how fast did it change, and how much better is it today compared to like almost a year ago?
So there's basically the GPT-4 model that is now the one that most people are using, or 3.5 if you go for the free one. And things have been evolving really quickly, mostly in the way people understand how to communicate with AI. And there's a bunch of things that were really interesting, specifically on ChatGPT. The first one is plugins. So you're able to do really interesting plugins, and to simply use AI for all kind of things with these plugins. For example, you can go and take a 10K reports, or a summary report of like a public company, and with the plugin, you're able to extract all this data, get it summarized.
Okay.
Not possible before. So that went really quickly. That went really fast, and there's always some change coming. So that I think
Okay.
that that changed.
Okay, so guys, stay tuned. Listen carefully to what Thibaut is going to say, because like in 6 months, it's outdated, and there's Thibaut again on the mic explaining only new stuff. Okay, so I'm going to share you slides, I guess, so that you can start sharing those insights you want to share.
Yeah.
Here we go.
We go. Perfect. So actually, there's also a link we can share while I'm starting with that. I know you have this link. It's an AI guide, so it's a free download. You can check. It's a guide on how to do outreach with AI, and we're going to talk about that also in here. So
Excellent.
basically, today I'm going to talk about 5 steps to using AI and ChatGPT to book meetings. And the first thing we want to do is actually to understand some really concrete use case for AI. And so the first use case I found, and one that is very important in prospecting, is the one about research. So one thing here, for me, the way I prospect, I always try to find problems of my prospects to actually go and insist on these problems to actually get a reply. And in a lot of cases, when people are trying to sell something, either founder, SDRs, or any type of people, they're gonna go and focus on the feature of their product. And often you're not going to get much replies with that. So the idea is really to understand and brainstorm problems, and you have a few options. You have the option where you don't know anything about the prospects problems. So some people who are maybe in early stage trying to build an MVP listening to us, they may have an idea of the problem of their prospects, but it's not super clear. And the other option is that you already know about your prospects problems.
Okay.
And so one thing that is really useful is to actually, when you don't really know about your prospect problem, you can ask ChatGPT to come up with some example of problems. So a prompt that you can use that is in red here would be act like, I don't know, the CEO of a specific company. So act like the CEO of Melting Spot and list your top 3 challenges for 2023. And then what you're going to do is take any data you find useful from this company, about this company. So the about section on LinkedIn would be a good example.
Okay.
And you could actually include that and ask for detailed bullet point answers only.
Okay.
And so I'm going to show you. Let me just find on the Notion here. Let me just find an example of that.
Perfect.
Yeah. So you may see my screen again. I'm going to try and make that bigger.
Yeah.
So here, that's example what that I've used. So here, act like Emma Tate, Global VP, people at Contentful, and list your top 3 challenges for 2023. And so here, what I did, I took the about section on LinkedIn and detailed bullet point answers only. And so here, what it's doing that is interesting is that it's saying, as Emma Tate, Global VP, people at Contentful, my top 3 challenges for 23 are, and then you have talent acquisition and retention with some explanation, scaling operations, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so
Okay.
what's really interesting here is that it's not going to be the data. It's not going. You cannot go, as the AI cannot go into the head of your prospect and tell you, okay, what they're thinking about, but it's going to help you brainstorm some ideas of the problem they may have. And one
Okay.
thing, for example, my wife works for a company called Test Gorilla, and they're selling some kind of thing where you can hire people without having to check a resume, but
Okay.
by using what we call a skill-based hiring. And so one thing about this is really around diversity, where often it's hard to ignore your bias when you're not hiring someone. And if it's a key initiative for someone at Contentful, diversity, equity, and inclusion can be something where you can really go a bit deeper and try to develop some problems based on that.
Okay. So it's really, you pick up someone on LinkedIn, you copy paste the about section of LinkedIn, and you ask basically ChatGPT, what are the 3 main challenges of this person in 2023 or in 2024 very soon. And that's like you've checked, you've double checked it works. I mean, if you do that with, for example, me, it's going to be 90%, 99% right? Or
So it depends. It may not be right, but the thing is, it's going to come up with whatever makes most sense to the AI at this point. So if you put a lot of details about this person, so I can maybe take your resume and feed it through a plugin, in
Okay.
ChatGPT, take your LinkedIn profile, and then, go and check for some details. The more detail and the more context you're going to give, the more accurate it's going to be.
Okay.
But again, it's a brainstorming tool. I'll give you
Mhm.
an example. Recently, or a few months ago, I was like, I'm living in south of France, and I wanted to find, let's say, or brainstorm a business about wines of south of France. And so what I asked, I said, okay, give me 10 ideas of online business that you could do around wines of south of France. And he gave me some really good stuff about talking about the different cepage, talking about the different domains, talking about the weather, talking about plenty of different things. And it was really interesting because these are things I could have come up with, but it would have taken me a lot of time to go and list all these things. And here, in a few seconds, I was able to have a few ideas. And let's say the domain spotlight, where you talk about a specific domain, was a really good one. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to focus and expand on this.
Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. So first, kind of brainstorming on the challenges of your prospect.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
Cool
And
stuff.
so the other option is when you already know about the prospect's problems. And that's when it's more powerful, because what you're going to do is do the pretty much the same prompt, but you're going to give some example challenges of what people will get. So I don't know if you think about melting spot, there can be, how can I get my products in the hands of as many people as I can? How can I develop a product-led growth strategy? And I don't know, how can I find money to do some additional runway or something like that. And so
Mhm.
here you can ask to find a few more challenges, 5 more challenges, 10 more challenges, and it's going to come up with some additional ideas. And what's good here is that you can use this research to either check with people who are already selling, in your organization, who already, are selling and have some good success, and check with them if that makes sense.
Yep.
Or check that with your customers, and potentially, if you don't have a product yet, or you don't really know what you want to sell, you're going to go with your customers and say, okay, I'm looking for, I'm trying to understand what are the challenges of people I'm trying to sell to, and here are the 3 main ones I found. Would you be able to tell me a bit more about that? And so here it's again a brainstorming tool that you can use. And again, the more input you give, the more data you give it, the better the output will be.
Perfect. Okay. Clear. Don't hesitate to ask questions if you have any. We're here to answer.
Exactly. And so another aspect of this is, let's say you found our problem about diversity, inclusion that we mentioned before. One additional thing, what you in cold outreach is really important, is to actually have symptoms of problems. So if you go to a doctor, often they're going to do the other things. So they're going to check your symptoms to find what problem you have. So if
Mhm.
you're coughing, if you have a headache, whatever, maybe you have a cold, or maybe you have something else. But basically, they're going to check the symptoms to understand what is the sickness you have, and then give you a diagnostic and a treatment. That's pretty much the opposite we're doing when we're doing cold outreach. So imagine you have a lack of diversity in your organization. That's a problem. A symptom would be that you see that whenever you have a hiring manager that is female, they're hiring always other females who look like them. When it's so you have some example that could be like that, where there's symptoms that are really concrete that you can find. And so here you want to explore with ChatGPT what are some additional symptoms. So
Okay.
let's say we found our 3 problems. One is diversity, equity, and inclusion. You're going to say, give me 3 symptoms of problems you are trying to solve for each challenge, bullet point format only. And here that's important, because otherwise ChatGPT will tend to go and give you a very long essay, very boring and very wordy. And so you can ask it to not be too wordy and be
Bullet point
really.
format. Okay.
And then you're going to say, okay, so we have problems about people hiring people who look like them, like no diversity, or, there's like a huge gender imbalance or whatever. So these are very concrete symptoms. And the good thing, once you have these, so as a research tool and a brainstorming tool, you're going to be able to test these messages with your prospects and see, okay, are these symptoms that I'm trying? See, so if I have 3 symptoms for one problem, I'm going to be able to check 1 symptom per message I'm sending, and then maybe one will resonate more than the other. So I'm going to double down on this one.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm-hmm. Very
good.
clear.
So another one I really love, another really concrete use case, is finding personalization elements with ChatGPT. So the way I do that is I'm going to LinkedIn, and instead of what there's a very simple way you could do that is there's a small feature where whenever you go to a LinkedIn profile, there's a more button, and you can save to PDF this profile. So it's just taking all the text in the profile and exporting it to PDF in a resume format. So what you can do is save this to PDF, you highlight everything in the PDF, and then you feed that to ChatGPT in the form of this prompt. So here's the link.
What do you mean by highlight?
I'll show you exactly how it's done, so it's gonna be simpler. So I don't know, I'll go here on LinkedIn. I'll go to your place here.
Okay, that's me.
View your profile. And so what I'm gonna do is click on more, save to PDF. So it's downloading a PDF. And then that's what I mean by highlighting. So I'm just gonna copy paste what's happening here. And I'll do it live, but basically I'll go on ChatGPT and you can use 3.4 or 4. I like to use 4. And let me just find that. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to use here this format here. So let me just remove the resume. Go back here. I select everything. And so what it says here is basically, here's a LinkedIn profile of a prospect. I'm trying to get this prospect to reply to my LinkedIn messages. And I need to mention an element of his profile that is relevant to the problems I help solve, which are typically low reply rates to call outbound, inconsistency in input from sales team, focus on the wrong prospects. Now find me 5 elements from his resume that I could mention to catch their attention. No fluff. Here's the resume.
Okay.
You can see here the format is terrible, but that doesn't matter. Here, it's going to come up with some ideas.
Okay.
And given the problem that you address, it's going to give me some ideas of what I could use as a personalization element from your profile to get a conversation with you. And so here it says something about your company, that you offer segmentation for highly personalized content, blah, 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 community-led growth opportunity at the community lab. So it's using your resume. And so what I can do is, instead of going and scrolling through that and be, just spending hours, or not hours, but like 30 minutes to find the personalization element, here I got 5 things I can go and check here,
Okay.
And I can say, hey, how was the jump from care sharing to community growth? Any issues with outbound, or I'm simplifying, but basically it gives me some data, some stuff I can use to actually put some personalization elements in my outreach.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Yeah, interesting. And
so that's an example.
For the demo.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's an example of how you can do find some personalization elements.
Okay.
Now, basically, we're going to talk about building a sequence. So this one, I can skip that. But basically, like when you're doing some cold outreach, the ChatGPT part is going to really help in the research part and messaging. And also, whenever you're going to, let's say, have a marketing resource, an ebook that you want to convert into a playlist, or not a playlist, a playbook, that's something that's very important, where you can use ChatGPT to help you there. But for prospecting, the most important thing before AI or any tool is to stay consistent, and that's done through building a sequence. Okay. So the goal of your sequence is to have a reply to start a conversation. You're not trying to book a meeting or anything. You're trying to start a conversation. What we recommend is to have 1 problem per touch point, and 1 resource per touch point. By resource, I mean something that you're going to tease to your prospects to solve the specific problem. And at the end, you finish with a call to action. I'm going to show you an example of that after. But basically, when you build your sequence, I'm going to show you how it looks like. So here's an example of a sequence where you'd build, let's say, 6 touch points. You define the step, the channel, LinkedIn, email, or phone, for example. The media, is it a connection request? Sorry, a text, an audio or video? And what's the cadence? What are the days you're going to wait between each touch point for actually following up? And so there's not much in AI here that I'm using, but for ChatGPT, you could actually ask it to come up with an example of an outbound sequence and give you some ideas of what would be the steps, what would be the channel that would work, and that could give you, again, some ideas for brainstorming.
Okay. Yep.
And step 3, craft your message, which is, for me, the most important. So I'm going to talk about asynchronous touchpoints, which are all the touchpoints you're sending by text or email. And basically, when you're not talking to someone directly, but you're sending them something and they open it or read it after. Basically, one thing that works really well with ChatGPT is to show it what a good message looks like. So instead of saying, write me a cold email, I'm going to show you actually how it looks like. When you go to ChatGPT, and you do to GPT-4, you say, write me a cold email to sell lead generation service. So that's how 95% of people are using ChatGPT. You go here, and then subject, unlock unlimited growth potential, and then I hope this email finds you well. My name is whatever. So you know already without having it done that no one's going to read that. So I'm going to read it. First, the subject line is terrible. So if people open it, you're lucky. And then if they start opening, dear prospect name, I hope this email finds you well. Benoit, I'm sure you receive emails like that every day. When do you
Yeah.
receive emails like that?
I send them in my spam box.
Yeah. So actually, the AI in your spam box is taking care of that in most cases, which is great. So here you see how stupid ChatGPT can be
It's
when
very
you ask
long.
it to do that. And he's saying full name, position, company, whatever, like blood type. So that's terrible. So basically, you don't want to do that. What you want to do is use ChatGPT as a virtual assistant. So what you're going to do is you're going to teach or show it what a good cold email looks like, and you're going to ask it to come up with the same stuff for all the symptoms or the problem you found.
Okay.
So here would be, hey, I'd like to build I don't know, 9 touch point outbound sequence in order to get a prospect to reply to my prospecting. I use the following framework for each message. And then I'm going to show a framework template. And then here's an example of the framework for the first symptom you listed. And basically, you show the example. Now, based on the framework, I shall build a cold outreach message for each symptom listed below. So I'm going to show you an example here in my course. So we go here, messaging. Okay. So that would be an example. So I'd like to build a 3 touch point outbound sequence. So here's a framework that is really good. Question, teaser, call to action, PS. So it's a problem-oriented question to get your prospect to reflect. An intriguing resource to help your prospect solve a part of the problem you mentioned in your question. A simple question to get the prospect to reply, and a PS, a funny personal mention. So here would be, hey, Emma, curious to know how you're preventing a high turnover rate among employees. If you're interested, I can share a short 3-step playbook on disqualifying bad candidates earlier. Sounds interesting? PS, love your yellow smiley T-shirt. Where can I get one? Because she shared a picture of this. And so now I'm asking it to come up with high turnover rate, difficulty finding qualified candidate, competitive job market, whatever. And so what it's doing is taking all these frameworks, and then it's going to apply. So it has a framework. It understands what is the framework, what is a good example, and then it's taking the problems and doing the same using these frameworks. And so what you're going to see is that the message will be a lot better. Sometimes they're not going to be that great, so you have to tweak them. But instead of going and doing it yourself manually, you can have ChatGPT help you and do 80% of the work.
Okay.
And that's the biggest thing I see when I train people. I show them frameworks. I get them to actually, reflect on that. I give them homework assignment. They come back with a homework assignment, and it just sucks because they don't know how to apply it. ChatGPT does it much better. So it does a lot of the work, and then you tweak it to make it really nice. But that's a really good efficiency tool whenever you want to build messages.
What about the efficiency of the sequence? Like, have you noticed that those ChatGPT made sequences could reach a higher conversion rate or reply rate, or it's
So
just
what
a
I found
question
is
of
the
doing the
use of
same sequence, but
ChatGPT doesn't make a huge difference in the reply rate. It's the use of the framework. So
yeah.
if you use a good framework where it's very simple, it's short, there's one call to action, you're not talking about your business, that you're going to get a lot of replies. But what ChatGPT enables is for people to, take a framework they really like and basically teach ChatGPT how to apply it to their own symptoms. And then they're able to get a lot more, to go a lot faster to create these messages and test these sequences faster. Because one of the 80% of success in cold outreach is really consistency. So it's being able to think, at the beginning of your sequence, do the work of doing the sequence, doing the messages, and then applying it, sending it every day. And that's where you start getting some replies. So what I found is ChatGPT is a really good way to actually get to this learning curve, to shorten the learning curve, because
Consistency. Yeah.
yeah, people have a huge issue applying frameworks and new stuff they learn, and ChatGPT doesn't have this issue.
Okay. We have a question from Zach, and I think it's actually answering. You've just answered the question, but do you have a list of pre-written questions we can ask ChatGPT as part of a cold approach?
So I would say
specific frameworks.
a prompt directory for cold outreach. So yeah, it's like part of the bonus of the link we're gonna share after. So I have one.
Okay. Okay, so stay tuned, Zach, until the end, and you get the link.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So once your sequence is sent, like, what else can you do with your ChatGPT?
So I'm going to show you one simple way of building a reciprocity resource. So a reciprocity resource is something that you share. I don't know if you're watching Netflix, Ben.
Yeah.
What do you watch? What kind of series have you been watching recently?
Um, I don't even remember the name. Sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you what I watch. I watched
Okay, tell
recently
me.
something called Love is Blind. So it's something
Okay.
that is really stupid about people who getting married based on, so they don't know each other or they don't see each other. Then they are getting married, and then they meet each other at basically a few days before getting married. So it's really ridiculous. It's trashy. It works extremely well, and it's good watch. When you want to watch
Good
that with your
commercial
wife.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the way they do it, they get you, it's actually interesting. And at the end of the show, of the episode, what they do is they actually create a cliffhanger. So they, I don't know, they're gonna make people talk, and then you're like, oh, she's starting to actually be mean about that, or she's jealous about this guy, and then clack, they cut, and you have to keep watching to know what's actually happening. That's called a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Very classic thing to actually catch the attention and keep the attention of someone.
And
That's
tease
the
on the
same
next one.
thing I
Yeah.
want to do. And basically what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, I'm reaching out to you for this reason. Do you have this specific problem? Because if you do, I have something to actually help you solve that. Do you want to know what it is about? Just reply. So
Yeah.
that's a very simple thing to do. You're creating the Netflix effect, I call that. And so a good way to do that is to use existing marketing material. So if you're working for any type of business, there's most likely a marketing tactic that is collecting leads through ebooks or white papers or whatever, or even like a blog post.
Blog
And
articles. Yeah.
the blog posts often are made for SEO purpose to make sure that you're found better on the search engine. So they're really hard to read for a human. They're great for Google, but not for a human. So what you can do is take this blog post and extract the content of the blog post with the TLDRDs, basically, or now the plugins with ChatGPT, and you can ask it to turn this very long text into a playbook. So an example would be act like an online marketer and turn the following content into a playbook, which is basically the content you've shared. And then you can generate catchy titles for this playbook, basically. And so an example I'm going to share you on that. So let's just check here. Navigating conversation, messaging. So an example I have here is for remote.com, which is basically a solution where you can hire people everywhere in the world without having an entity. So it's a global payroll service for distributed team, very long, very boring. And so what I've done is I've used the prompt I shared with you, where it's taking, the long SEO driven kind of tech content and turning it into a playbook where you have an intro, step 1, 2, 3, and basically you're turning that into a playbook. You can host that into a Notion page or a Word document and a PDF. And as a sales rep, that's really good because you can use what's already existing, turn that into something catchy that's going to sound pretty cool. And you have this, for me, I love this one, the ultimate guide to global payroll services for remote teams. So you can include that as a teaser in your outreach and you say, hey, Benoit, curious to know how you're preventing, like crazy hiring costs in France, or how you're preventing from not being able to hire people internationally. Because if you're interested, I have a small guide to global bureau services for remote team. Let me know and I'll send it over. So that's a good way here to extract the information, summarize it, turn it into something actually more interesting and snackable, I could say, and then tease that to your prospects.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And so
you can even just ask the title, and if the prospect answers, then you
do it.
You do the job to. Yeah.
Exactly. You got it. Basically, that's the idea, is just make sure you find something that gets the interest, and once it's there, build it, basically.
Okay.
So it's that's really the approach here.
Okay.
And
So
so
the Netflix effect. Thanks for that.
yeah. And so there's a lot of other things, but I think we're already, I mean, basically there's
Yeah, we're almost out of time.
but,
We can take, I guess, 1 or 2 additional minutes if you want to share other stuff, but
But basically, the rest is navigating conversation. Doesn't really include AI. Just one thing I want to share is, by the Benoit, you have an iPhone or you have another phone?
iPhone, yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen this thing where when you go to a picture and you basically keep your finger on the element, it kind of does a small thing and it cuts it.
Yeah.
So basically, that's what AI does. A lot of people think, okay, AI is going to replace my job, whatever, maybe at some point. But before, I have a podcast, and what I was doing, I was inviting people over. And as a solopreneur, I was doing plenty of things. And one of these things was taking their LinkedIn picture, going to Photoshop, and then like cutting around the face or the face of the person to extract it and then put like a layer. And so, like just be able to really do something where I extract this person and I add it to my design.
Banner or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the thing with AI. And so this thing with iPhone is different with ChatGPT, but that's really the concept of AI is that instead of taking 10 minutes to do that, you click on this, you keep your finger, and then you're able to extract this element. And if you go and zoom into to that, it's basically the same work that you would do, but the machine is doing it itself. So it's kind of like turning around, finding the element, and doing the exact same thing. So AI, as kind of a closing remark, is really something that you want to use as an assistant, as some kind of capacity, or you want to train it on what is a good thing, what is a good message, good connection request. And then instead of asking it to come up and tell you what is a good thing, you want to show it what's good, and then use that to cut your work time and be more efficient, basically.
Okay, it's kind of your sales trainee or sales
Yeah,
assistant if you're a
exactly.
sales rep.
Exactly.
How long or how much per day should a sales spend on ChatGPT according to you?
So, I mean, you should not be spending too much time doing this. So, again, if you're doing sales, you have to focus on sales. But my wife, for example, whenever she writes an email, she just improves the writing with ChatGPT. So it's always on the background. They say, okay, now just check what I'm doing, make sure it doesn't make any, that it makes sense. So it should be just a productivity tool that's always open, and you
Okay.
use it for different things. And sometimes you're like, okay, I mean, I don't know what to do. And you say, okay, here's my job. I'm an SDR. I have to do this, and I don't really know how to structure my day. Give me a plan of a typical day for an SDR, and so it can give you some ideas again. So really, that would be using it as you would work with an assistant.
Okay. One last question, and then we will stop because we are running late already. But what's next for you? What are the next evolutions of ChatGPT that are going to impact the sales process?
So I think one thing that I'm seeing is that as we're training more and more like the models to be smarter and smarter and do like more complex tasks, there's going to be I read something very interesting about that. It's called like autonomous agents, where basically it's a set of prompts and a set of things you can use with ChatGPT. And so for me, I think that's going to be where we're going to be working. What's going to happen at some point is you're going to have not two human buyers, like talking into a sales process to buy something, but two autonomous agents, like one buyer agent, one seller agent that's going to be dealing and doing that for us. So that's the way I see it, is that you're going to have commercial teams that are going to be running prompts and designing these kind of agents that are going to talk and interact with each other. And as a human, just like
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
yeah. And it's just like when you think about how pilots fly airplanes, like commercial airplanes, they just like oversee it as a, I don't know how you call that, but basically as lords or whatever. They oversee the plane, but the plane is mostly doing everything. So they just, they're just connecting different things and making sure that it makes sense. So you're going to bring sense to the way AI works, but most of the heavy lifting will be done by the AI.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Thanks a lot, Thibaut. I'm not sure we have any additional questions. If so, don't hesitate. You have at least 3 more seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe just one about price.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the question, but
About price of ChatGPT or?
probably how much does it cost?
I think it's $20 per month for there's a
pro.
free version where you use 3.5, which is the model that is not the latest, but the one before. It's doing a lot of it's actually pretty good. But if you want to go further with the plugins and everything, you have to use the paid version, which is $20 a month.
Okay. And so, for example, if you want to import a PDF extracted from LinkedIn, you need the
You need the
4.
paid version, or you can use another tool called TLDRVs, basically, which allows you to extract. So there's plenty of tools like that, but it's more manual. You can be more efficient with the paid version.
Okay, that's the question that was asked actually. Like, can we go with the free basic version? It's probably enough for most of what you explained, but for sure, the $20 per month paid version will offer additional features and capabilities. So thanks for that. Thanks a lot, Thibaut. I actually learned a lot. I'm going to ask our sales team to watch the replay of this session. I'm sure there is plenty we can do. We are already using ChatGPT, and I think it's the case of most of sales teams, but it's always interesting to have a kind of methodology. So I think you have a training masterclass or a series of masterclass on the topic. Whoever is interested, the link is probably or has been pushed in the chat. So you just need to subscribe. And I think there is a 25% discount on those trainings. So if you want to go further and investigate further how much ChatGPT can change your life as a sales, just click on the button and talk to Thibaut.
Exactly.
All the best, Thibaut. Thanks a lot for this and for sharing all this information. And to all of you, I wish you a good day for those in the US and a good evening for the others. Ciao,
Thank you so
guys.
much, Benoit.
Bye. Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot. Bye.